focus. Ideate, innovate, enable.
That was quick.
Yeah, Mark, don't worry. I'm driving on the new expressway and it's absolutely safe.
Hello and welcome to the second edition of PwC Presents The Winning Leap in association with CNBC TV18. This is a show where we look at how businesses create value, discuss the strategies and opportunities that are vital for their growth and the various challenges they face in India's economic environment. In an age of hyper-connectivity, cloud computing and digitization, cyber crimes are on the rise. This week, we discuss the need to secure personal data and intellectual properties along with a relook at how companies secure their physical assets against natural calamities, labor unrests, and market volatilities.
According to PwC's Global State of Information Security Survey 2016, cyber attacks are increasing by the day in India, with more and more companies falling prey to it. The study points out that incidents have shot up by 117% in 2014. Realizing the untold damage it can cause, the Reserve Bank of India has asked all banks to undertake cyber resilience initiatives on multiple fronts: people, processes, technology and governance, to protect not only its own data and infrastructure, but also ensure the safety of customers' data. Clearly, securing assets, both physical and intellectual, are key for the sustenance of businesses.
Joining me on the discussion is Subhash Subramaniam, CISO at ICICI Bank, Brijesh Datta, CISO at Reliance Jio. Mr. Sivarama Krishnan is partner and leader cybersecurity at PwC India. Thank you, all of you, for joining me on this special show. Thanks indeed. If I can start with you, Subhash. What is the level of preparedness as far as Indian companies go in this regard?
One has to see it in the context of the sweeping changes that have happened in the IT setup. The convergence of forces, social, mobility, analytics and cloud have completely revolutionized the way IT as a function delivers products, services, and has taken businesses from the conventional format to the digital format. The governance framework around IT as a function and around information security as a function has undergone an enormous amount of change. There is a greater oversight on the part of boards of companies, where cybersecurity was perhaps a fringe agenda 5 or 6 years back. It has now come right into the center of the boardroom conversations, and that is one very, very central change. Apart from that, the policy framework, the development of teams, the technology solutions available have also undergone a sea change over the period of last 3-4 years. And one heartening sign is that critical industries in the country have got their own specific targeted plans for enhancing the resiliency of these sectors.
There are leading edge companies who more or less well prepared to address it, maybe to the extent of global standards. But in India, we do have a large chunk of SME, the small and medium-sized enterprises. They are more or less ill-prepared to address this challenge when it comes to cybersecurity. Why it is worrisome is cybersecurity is just not isolated to one company, because now the transactions are happening end-to-end from anywhere to anywhere. So even a weakest link to a chain can affect any part of the chain overall. So because of that, the country-wise overall it has to get improved, and where the large companies need to start addressing their own in their value chain? How do they help the smaller company to elevate their security level and posture?
Is there a difference between the kind of attacks and security risks we see for companies here in India and companies that overseas face at a very basic level? And what is the profile of the attacker? Who are we really talking about here?
There are broadly 4 categories of attackers that target, financial companies, infrastructure companies, SMEs. They start from basically newbies, kids. They're called script kiddies in cyber lingo. So those are the guys who do it just for fun, teenagers that you keep hearing of. Then the next profile would be hacktivists. These are groups like Anonymous, for example, who are out to prove a point. Then the third category would be criminals, right? And lastly would be governments. Like Snowden, for example, he revealed a lot going on there. In earlier times, we used to see more of the first 2 categories. These days, mainly the attackers are criminals. Nature of attacks more and more in India is financial. Then the other category of attacks are which are directly targeting financial companies. Plenty of them coming in from all over the world. And the last category that is gaining traction lately is ransomware. This basically means that somebody locks up all your files and asks you for money.
Subash, how has the emergence of new platforms, fintech, etc., IoT, etc., changed the landscape really in this area?
Prashant, fintech has revolutionized a lot of delivery of services as compared to how conventional business used to do it. And a lot of the reason for the success of fintech companies has been their reliance on technology and data and analytics around it. There is an increasing focus on the need to protect customer data. And I think we are in a good position now. But because of the nature of the fintech industry, one would continue to see innovation. Every 6 months there is a new concept which is being talked about, and security invariably follows with a lag. So I would say awareness is there, but I would say it's usually a game of catching up.
We tend to hear about the larger companies and what's going on with them, but SMEs are a very large group, business-wise, value-wise, etc. as well, right? How are they really dealing with it? Are they prepared? Is that where there is a big lacuna?
And the SMEs are the easiest to fall in prey for a ransomware, for a ransom calls and so on and so forth. From an Indian context, we do see rise in the incidences in SME. In particular, things like ransomware, phishing, email compromises, the online money transmissions and so on and so forth. That's an area where we find quite a lot of challenge the SMEs face in particular. When it comes to the small and medium-sized enterprises, it's largely run by entrepreneurs themselves, and their awareness dictates what investments the CISO or a CIO can get for a security. Again, they fall short of their ability to address the challenges. Globally, the regulation plays a very large role in enhancing and improving security. Unfortunately, in Indian context, the regulations fall short of addressing the needs of the current times.
New emerging companies run by entrepreneurs, especially in sectors like fintech, one would imagine they are a lot more updated about the risks and they want to spend there, if you want to take that.
Financial industry and telecom industry, for instance, they are heavily regulated in India. RBI has got clear guidelines of what every financial company is supposed to do. It's not as if, the board is free to do what they want and put in as much investments. Similarly, in telecom also, the regulatory authorities are very much into ensuring that these companies are secure. So by virtue of a regulatory oversight, they have much bigger security, much better security.
What needs to be done? Essentially raising the level of existing infrastructure, or you think we need more cutting edge kind of solutions to deal with the problems?
So 98% of the problem can get solved if basic processes, basic technology implementations and basic discipline in adopting the right processes, as Subhash talked about, having adequate governance, could solve this problem. Then comes into the next level is that how do I go back and address this 2-3% very complex issues. That comes in where it could get attracted to largely to the larger companies. Currently what occurs in Indian corporates is not about very advanced cutting edge technology investment, but going back to the basics, fixing all patches, making end user aware, monitoring end user activities so that you can keep on educating them what right things to do or what are things which is wrong to do, etc.
Right. In a way, very simply put, just being careful and following
Absolutely.
Simple rules, right?
Absolutely.
Protocols. So, Vash, last word to you. I mean, from a banking perspective, anything you'd like to add to this?
Certain sectors of the economy, I would say critical national infrastructure, definitely banking and financial services, definitely telecom, definitely public infrastructure like roads, etc. These sectors require a much higher degree of resilience,
Vigilance,
resilience,
Right.
investment in much more cutting edge tools, because the impact of that tail risk of 2 or 3% which Shiva spoke about in terms of financial and reputational damage, not only for the company or the industry but for the nation as a whole, is significant. So I would just, with that distinction, I think large part of what Shiva said, of course, holds true.
Thank you very much, all of you. Subhash, Mr. Krishnan, Brijesh, appreciate all of you joining in on this discussion. Very enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. That's an interesting conversation. But when we come back after this quick break, there's more coming up.